Well, we're getting there. We are getting closer and closer to spring football. It might not feel like it where you are, but we're getting there. I'm Pete Mundo, Heartland College Sports Weekly, part of heartlandcollegesports.com. We're your independent Big 12 digital media outlet. Appreciate you joining us wherever you are joining us, whether it's radio, podcast, YouTube, whatever it might be. Thanks for making us part of what you're doing and getting through this terrible winter, at least here in Kansas City, when it comes to talking some Big 12 football. We're going to get to the hoops here coming up with Matthew Postins. A lot to get to there. It's all on Heartland College Sports Weekly. But something I want to do, the offseason, sometimes you got to think of different topics on the football side of things, right? We'll get to the basketball, don't worry. But on the football side of things, I was talking with our guy Derek Duke, and we kind of head the football side of the operation at heartlandcollegesports.com. And he threw this out to me. He said, someone suggested to him on Twitter that maybe this quarterback crop in 2019 for the Big 12 would be the best since 2008. And I'm initially thinking, no way. It can't be close to 2008. So let's take a look at that here. Let's look at the guys who would be the starting quarterbacks for this year in 2019 in the Big 12. All right, Charlie Brewer for Baylor, right? Brock Purdy for Iowa State. I'm going to do the guarantees first off. Skylar Thompson at K-State, can we say that? Is that a guarantee? I think it is. Oklahoma State, of course, Jalen Hurts. Oklahoma, Jalen Hurts. Oklahoma State, I'd say Spencer Sanders, right? I'd say so. Texas, Sam Ehlinger. TCU's kind of up in the air right now. Texas Tech, Alan Bowman. West Virginia, Austin Kendall. Now, it's a great group of guys, but there's not – maybe Jalen Hurts because he's playing for Lincoln Riley, but it's not like there's a lock for the Heisman in there, right? Maybe Jalen Hurts because of Lincoln Riley. And then is there a surefire first-round pick in that group? Not that I'm seeing. Now, I know some of those guys are too young, like Brock Purdy, but – Charlie Brewer is a 4-year guy. He's a nice quarterback. He's a 4-year guy. Skylar Thompson. Sam Ehlinger's a good quarterback. I don't even know if he would work in the NFL at this point based on what I've seen, but he's still got a couple of years, so he can grow into it. But is it the best since 2008? And when you compare it to the guys in 2008, I don't think it's close. You look back on 2008, and you see guys like Sam Bradford. You see guys like Colt McCoy. Seeing Zach Robinson. Don't forget, RG3 was a freshman that year at Baylor. You had Chase Daniel. You had Todd Reesing. You had Josh Freeman at Kansas State. These are guys that were legitimate quarterbacks, not just in college, but in the NFL, some of them. Now, listen, Sam Bradford was a better college quarterback than, of course, he turned out to be in the NFL. But, he's still floating around. That is a fantastic top-to-bottom group of quarterbacks there that you had in 2008. My goodness. That is arguably as good as it gets. Now, I know the whole thing with the Big 12, the guys can't win playoff games. Patrick Mahomes, the first true Big 12 quarterback to win a playoff game, and he won one this past year. I get all that. But when you talk about guys who have played in the NFL, who had major success in college, I don't think it's close. Right? Bradford, McCoy, Freeman, RG3, right off the bat. Those are 4 guys off the top of your head that did a little something in the NFL. You're going to find 4 guys in this group right now in the Big 12 in 2019 that are going to play in the NFL. Austin Kendall, I like Austin Kendall. I liked him sparingly at OU. He was a big-time recruit, a 4-star guy, but we don't really know what Austin Kendall is. Sam Ehlinger, Jalen Hurts. It's a crazy, but Jalen Hurts is going to be now the 3rd transfer quarterback to start at OU for 3 straight years, and he's good, and I assume he's going to get the job. But he's the worst of the past 3. Not a knock on him. It's just Baker Mayfield was the best, in my opinion. Not the best athlete, the best quarterback. Then you had a little bit of a step down from the quarterback perspective to Kyler Murray. Great athlete, though. And now you have Jalen Hurts, who I'm fascinated to see what Lincoln Riley's going to be able to do with Jalen Hurts. But it's this kind of off-season stuff where you go back and forth with people, you have these conversations, and it's a lot of fun. But I don't think that this group, and I don't know what Spencer Sanders is, Alan Bowman, I like him. Is Alan Bowman a product of Cliff Kingsbury? I don't know. I do not know. TCU's up in the air right now after the transfer of Sean Robinson. Honestly, I don't think the transfer of Sean Robinson's a big deal. I think it's okay. I, even before the injury, was not overly impressed with what I saw, but you got questions there. The best of the group could end up being Brock Purdy. I just, I don't want to anoint him that after a freshman season. I don't want to put that kind of pressure on him just yet. So there's still quite a few kinks to work out, but it could be a very underrated, let's agree on that, an underrated group of quarterbacks in the Big 12 where the average college football fan may not know who these guys are before the season. They'll know Jalen Hurts because of Alabama. They'll probably know Sam Unger. Are they going to know Skylar Thompson? Are they going to know Brock Purdy or Charlie Brewer or Alan Bowman? The diehard fan will. Will the casual college fan know who that is? Probably not. I assume they will by the time the season ends. That is where the Big 12 can count on some progression for its conference here in 2019, which is always exciting. Something else I want to touch on. I was reading this article in Sports Illustrated on sportsillustrated.com. I don't, like the guys at SI, used to work there actually on the digital side when I was in New York. Fine group of individuals. But, I mean, the magazine itself is basically toilet paper at this point. I mean, there's nothing in it. And I know that's the case for a lot of magazines, but I'm sorry, there's nothing in the darn thing. There's nothing there. So they wrote about Texas A&M, and whether or not the hype train is too much for both programs right now. They both had really good years. You think about Texas getting to the Big 12 title game. You think about beating Georgia, right? And then you think about Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies winning 9 games, nearly knocking off Clemson in week 2. Both teams finishing in the top 20. They're going to be probably top 15 teams in the preseason polls. Are we overhyping them? My thing would be this. We always overhype them, okay? That's just the reality. And I think Texas fans would admit that. How many times the past 10 years have they started in the top 25 in the preseason and then been out of them by the time the season ends? I wish I had it right in front of me. I don't, but I guarantee you it's been at least half a dozen times, if not more, over the past 10 years before this past year. And you think about Texas. I mean, great. Ellinger's coming back, year 3 under Tom Herman. A lot to like. Colin Johnson in the fold. Offensive line, a year older under Herb Hand, all this stuff. But you are losing, and as good as the recruiting has been, Todd Orlando does lose 8 starters on defense. And that's a big deal. And you think about Texas A&M losing its top 2 tacklers. I'm not going to get into A&M too much and their personnel because, frankly, talking about A&M is a waste of my breath, a waste of your breath, or a waste of your brain power because as far as I'm concerned, A&M took their ball and went home. They are a bunch of wimps. And they act like they're now big time in the SEC. Oh, we're in the SEC. You finish 5th in the SEC every year. You got nothing to show for it, sans Johnny Manziel and Cliff Kingsbury, which feels like a lifetime ago. For Johnny Manziel, it's like 8 rehabs ago, and for Cliff Kingsbury, it's 3 jobs ago. He's now in the NFL for crying out loud. And who would have predicted this 3 years ago? Let me throw this out there. How about this? Cliff Kingsbury has an NFL job. Or when was Manziel drafted? I guess it was 2014. I'm going to tell you draft night in 2014, 5 years from now, Cliff Kingsbury's in the NFL and Johnny Manziel isn't. Who saw that coming, all right? Totally beside the point. But in this article, I was reminded of this. State rep in Texas, Lyle Larson, Texas A&M alum, typical of him. He filed a House Bill 412 that called for Texas and Texas A&M to play annually. If either school refused, they would be docked athletic scholarships or state funding, according to the bill. Larson said this was basically just to get a conversation going. How big of a hack do you have to be? I don't live in Texas. I live up in Missouri right now, Kansas City. If I had a state rep who was wasting his time on this type of stuff, I would walk into his office and request my tax dollars back in cash payments. Hey, buddy, put it on a silver platter for me. That is comical. And I remember reading that, but this article reminded me of it, and it blew my mind. Some of these state reps are such hacks in politics. It's unbelievable. It is. But I'd love to see Texas whip up Texas A&M again. But you know and I know there is very little advantage to A&M doing this because A&M can say, we're in the mighty SEC. We're Texas A&M. Instead of actually factoring in how they would do against their in-state rival. That's how they think they have a recruiting edge against Texas, by saying they're in the SEC. Therefore, they don't want to have to play them on the field. That's all they want to do. They want to go SEC better than Big 12. Come here. Have fun with it. I'm not losing any sleep over it. I'll tell you that right now. Well, it's always good to have you on board. Coming up, let's talk to Matthew Postins about some Big 12 basketball. Down the home stretch we go, right here on Heartland College Sports Weekly, part of heartlandcollegesports.com.